What's up everyone, welcome to a new video for Phobies. Obviously we want Phobies to be a fair game, but it's not necessarily obvious to make a game that is like sort of simple and really fair at the same time, right? Now the first player usually has the advantage of being able to capture panic points faster in the game. Now the devs have tried to make up for this by giving the second player one more key. This solution seems sort of arbitrary. I'm sure they've done a lot of work trying to figure out how to make this even, but it doesn't mean that they've actually done something that works. We don't really know. So I had an idea to verify mathematically if Phobies is actually fair or not. First, I'm going to try to explain the idea behind it. Then I'm going to talk about how I collected the data and some of the mistakes I did. Then I'm going to talk about the mathematics behind it. And finally, I'm going to talk about the results, what we can conclude from the stuff that I found on the game. Alright, so first we want to figure out if Phobies is a fair game. So we want to know if player 1 has an equal chance of winning of player 2. So the idea behind that is just we collect data of tons of games from players that started the game, tons of games from players that went second, and we check if the player 1 won more times than the player 2, right? So that's the idea behind it. Now, we need to get a lot of data because statistically it's very possible that if we get 20 people, it's not going to be 50-50, right? And it's not going to be representative of the actual population, of the actual results that we should get. And this is when I sort of experimented the best way to do it fast, because I didn't want to waste my time, obviously. So first thing I did, choose a sample. It's the same process that I did in my tier list recently, so you can go check it out if you want. But we just go into the top leaderboard of player in async, right? And we want to check their games. So it's pretty simple. We just go, let's say Gouda Baby. I'm sure he's actually in my list here, but now first thing I did, you'll see here in the data, I started with Vladimir, that one king, Cassius. Now obviously these guys, they were the top of the leaderboard, but I started like at the beginning, like literally I think like a few hours after the season started. So the elo was, everyone had a 3000 elo. I don't think it really matters which people I question, as long as they are relatively like competitive in their games. Let me put it that way. If you put two top players, two grandmasters in chess, you give them all the chess pieces except one player has one less pawn. I would probably, I don't want to guarantee it, but I would tell you probably the player that has one more pawn is going to win 90% of the time. Someone can back that up if you know chess, but the principle is if you know what you're doing and you have a slight advantage, you can use that slight advantage to win much more often than if you give two noobs, two people that don't really know chess, and one you remove a pawn. It's probably gonna be much more close to 50-50, right? Gets more pronounced, I guess, when you have a population of people that know what they're doing. So this is why I went async, top leaderboard. I tried to go for the, top 30 people, and I started collecting data. And you see the first people that I got, I went like 20 games each. And this is when I sort of realized that it was probably a mistake, because I was going in with the assumption that everyone played the same way. So if I go and take 20 Gouda Baby games, it's possible that a lot of his games, he plays a certain way that is not representative. He plays like a different way that doesn't really represent how everyone else plays. So that means that in some maps or in some situations he wins more often than most people. What happens then is I have a sample that is not really representative, right? I have too much data of one guy that plays differently, so the results don't apply to everyone and don't apply to most people even. So that was a mistake. I realized that, and like after 60 results in, I changed a little bit my process and I went 6 games instead. 6 games for each player that I went to their profiles. So I would go, first of all, I would check their stress level just for the fun of it. I don't even think it mattered, but I wrote out their name, stress level, and then what I did is I check their first wins, their first games, or their most recent games. So you see here it's a win, loss, win. So I would go win, loss, win, and then I would go in each of their games, right? So win, loss, win, and then go back, check, are you player 1, player 2, go You know, write a 1 if you're player 1, write a 2 if you're player 2. Pretty obvious. Also wrote down the maps, because I thought if I had enough data, I would maybe be able to show which maps in particular are a problem, or are actually biased toward the first and second player, right? Collected data, and I collected data, blah, 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 blah. At some point, I was like tired, because I felt like I had collected so many data from pretty much all the players in the top leaderboard, and I had to scroll down sort of far before I had someone that I didn't check already. So I mean, I didn't want to pick the people twice, because I didn't want to pick the same game twice. And I mean, talking about this, obviously it's possible that some players in the top leaderboard played against each other, so the same game would sort of like happen, recur in the data twice. I didn't want to go through the procedure of making sure that didn't happen, and I don't think it mattered that much, so I just let that fly. I mean, obviously, technically, we took 2 data results out of 1, but whatever. So I went also in the top of arena, right? And I guess if the first time you see Claus, yeah, Claus is here, so that's probably when I just decided to go with the arena players instead. Don't think it really matters that much anyway. I mean, it's the same game, just another game mode, so whether you play arena or async, you shouldn't expect different results. I think I've explained how I got the data. With the same process, you should be able to go on your own, and if you're really curious about it, you know, add your own data to my data and get even more precise results. That was just out of curiosity. As you can see, I wanted to check the win rate of player 1 and player 2 out of data that I got. So this is curiosity, because I wasn't done collecting the data yet. I only had like 100 games, I should say. And it's weird, because the data that I first got had a 60% win rate for player 1, 54% for player 2. So yeah, it was interesting. Because we first see that there's a little advantage for player 1 over player 2. I mean, intuitively, if you don't think about it too much, you might think, wait, that doesn't make any sense. 61 plus 55%, that doesn't do 100%, right? Obviously, the sample that I have a win rate that's above 50%. So they're gonna win much more often than they're gonna lose, because they're good players, right? Now that was fun and all, but we finally wanted to take the whole data set that I got. I got 300 results, so it took a while. I didn't want to go, obviously, if I had taken the time to do more research, I would have had better results. I wrote the name of each map that I encountered, a number, and this is how often they came up. You'll see that the maps that were in the rotation a few weeks ago, right? So these ones, they are in the majority. The rest, and not even these ones. So you'll see that these maps here are in the majority. Most of them have like 30 something results. A little less, I guess, in the big maps. That's to be expected. And the ones that were not in rotation, they still came up, and I guess that's because some of the games were async games and they were like older, right? Also, I mean, out of curiosity, I got a player list here if you want to check. I'll make sure the data is available in the comments, and probably in the description, not the comments. That will be a very long copy paste. So if you want to see if you're in the list, go check it in the description. Just for fun, I checked the average stress level. The average stress level in the top 100. I mean, probably not, right? But the average stress level of the sample is 40. The number of games, 304. Number of losses. No, hold on. Whoops. Number of wins. Number of losses. That wouldn't make any sense. No, there is 212 wins, 92 losses in total, 69% win rate. That's kind of sick. There was 147 games that I took down that the player I checked if they won or lost was the second player to go, and there was also 157 games for player 1. So a few more games out of player 1 than player 2, right? But if we get more games or less games in each sample, it doesn't matter, because we want to check the percentage of winning, I guess. Now, we do need to do some math here. Check the number of games that were won as player 1, that were lost as player 1, and then easily you can know the win rate of player 1 in the sample that I've got. Same thing we do as player 2, and we see there's about 4%. There's a little more than 4% difference between the wins and the losses. Okay, I guess the camera died. Hopefully it doesn't matter for you guys. I want to explain this the best way I can, because I've learned all of my statistics stuff in French, so it might not go well in English, but alright, so this is sort of the place where there's like actual math involved and statistics and stuff. So if you're not into that, you can just skip this part. But what it allows us to do is prove whether or not the difference here we have is caused by the data set being biased, or if it's if actually the game, or if this is actually representative of the whole population, right? So since we have 300 results, or more precisely this amount for each player 1 and player 2, and there's this win rate, we can calculate how likely it is that the difference here, like in actual numbers, if it's caused by the natural variance of limited data out of populations, right? Because obviously you're never gonna get the exact average for player 1 and player 2 if you have a limited data, if you don't have the whole population. So since I only have 300 games, it shouldn't be like exactly it. And the variation that you'd expect this data set or the whole population to create out of only 300 results, this thing creates a curve, and we can calculate where we are in this curve, sort of. Okay, so we have our hypothesis 0, probability of winning as player 1 equals probability of winning as player 2. H1, our hypothesis 1, probability of winning as player 1 is greater. So we want to prove this, and we want to prove this with 90% certainty. So this is what significance level is, or the chance of us being mistaken in our data. So are we able to prove it? Well, we need to get past this critical value, and just like, if you don't understand this math stuff, just go back to go check the video in the description. I don't want to explain it and I don't think I'm a good teacher to do that sort of stuff. But what's important to know is that if our final result here exceeds this, we are able to prove it. But you'll see that it does not. So what this means is the difference is not high enough, and we don't have a population that is big enough to prove hypothesis 1. So we have to stick with hypothesis 0. Unfortunately, with a significance level of 0.1, we cannot confirm that the probability of winning as player 1 is better than the probability of winning as player 2. I mean, to be completely honest, that's what I was expecting. If we need a lot of data with this kind of stuff, and we don't have it, unfortunately. So I'd be curious to continue this. All the data that I've collected is not it's not gone, and it's gonna be able, if I want to continue this, I can just keep the stuff I already have, unless there's a big patch in maps and stuff, or there's a big change. It should still be applicable, okay? But that's not over. It's not. Don't quit on the video yet, okay? Because I did do some interesting stuff with each map, because I did put down each map. So first I filtered all the data for each map, and you can see that I don't have a lot of data for each, by the way. So it's gonna be that's why I said not enough data. See, we have only like 30, 35, maximum 50 for each map. So it's very hard to do the same thing I did here and confirm if each map is biased or not. That would take an insane amount of data, but it's still pretty interesting. And there's one result in particular that I find interesting, so stick around. Okay, so first, small maps, big maps. I classified each result if they were a big map or small map. So you can see that each 2, 3, 4, 5, and I think 6 is in there. So yeah, so right, each map number is associated to a small map. I did the same math I did earlier, and this is the result that I get, right? And this is comparable to this thing. It's like a Z value, I think that's what it's called. And this can be associated to like a probability of like natural variance in like averages of like small samples in large population. And this is not very high. Like if we just go back, this is what, if we want to have to be able to prove at a significance level of 0.1 that hypothesis 1 is true, we need a critical value of 1.28, and this is not even close. So we can't prove, even if there's like a small difference here, it's still relatively the same difference in probability, right? There's like a 4% difference. We still have less data, right? Because it's only the small maps. I filtered out the big maps. Now, if we go big maps only, it's relatively the same. It's minus, but that doesn't really matter. It's quite interesting actually, because as player 1, as player 1, you're less likely to win than player 2 in big maps. To be completely honest, I don't really understand why, but that's just the case. I say that's just the case, but not necessarily. Could just be due to the fact that we have like weird data. Very much, you know, like there's only 0.54 here, so it doesn't really prove anything. Still interesting to note, right? From the data that we've gotten, the best odds indicate that it's actually better for player 2. Maybe it's because of the fact that they're bigger, so having that you have two key advantage as player 2 in big maps, that might be a big difference. It's possible that the advantage that you get in small maps is due to the fact that you're gonna break the heart more often. Yet, in my personal experience, you don't break the heart very often in big maps. Outside of like in this might sting a little bit, right? Because in stuff like Rush Hour or Like and Subscribe, Like and Subscribe is quite often, but like Rush Hour, you never break the heart, I feel like. Anyway, cryosis. We have a big difference here, 15% difference. But the data set, right, this is the first like map in particular that we check, 33 results. So a 15% difference can very much be caused to the fact that we have only 12 results as player 1. So there you see here there's like 75%. If you just change one, right? If I just change the game that I've checked to another one here as player 1, if that was a win, it'd be a whole lot different, right? So if I just say win here, 83%, 1.1. So there's a big difference. The floor is lava. Very interesting one. So you'll see here, this is kind of insane. I have 34 results. So right off the bat, should indicate that there is not a very high probability that this should be able to conclude that we have anything conclusive. But for some reason, out of the data that I've collected, there is 80% win rate as player 1, 56% win rate as player 2. And if we do the same math, 1.56, critical value 90%, we have something that finally exceeds 1.28. So, I mean, is this actually good to conclude that the floor is lava is biased? Because T-Fill is the force of lava, by the way. I think it does. I think if there's anything you should like retain from this video, the floor is lava is very much biased, I think, personally. But we are still it would be interesting to like expand this and get more data on the floor is lava in particular, to check if this is actually true, because it's only 90%, keep in mind. So if this is actually true, or just like a weird coincidence that the win rate that I've measured is both too high as player 1 and too low as player 2. So I didn't mention it at the beginning, I don't think, but I think these results can be good at determining which maps should be like prioritized in tournaments. And I would tell you, if you're a tournament organizer or planning on entering a tournament, don't get yourself tricked into going into the floor is lava when you're player 2, because you have a 20% chance of winning, pretty much. So yeah. Now, Biff's room. Biff's room, not very interesting. The difference is nothing, so 0.24. I'm just gonna go past these ones real quick. Home sweet home. Difference is nothing. Nothing here. Lights out. A lot of people think lights out is super advantageous for player 1. But that seems to be actually the complete opposite. Well, not really. It seems to be pretty much even. But we still don't have like enough data to actually conclude that player 2 is in advantage. Rush hour. Kind of big. Kind of a big difference. Still not 1.28, so we can't conclude anything. But, wow. 92% winning. Okay, that's really, really strange. Out of the data that I've gotten as player 2, there's only one loss. So, I don't know. You explain that how you will. Obviously, it's possible that I've only had a weird sample, but still, I mean, it's unlikely that I've gotten... If it's 50-50, it's really unlikely that I've gotten this result, right? Okay, now we see what Rand Pass do. 19 results. Low difference. We can't really prove anything. Same thing here. Wait, this is this might sting a little bit. Wow, okay. 78%. So this kind of goes with what I've been saying earlier. There's a much higher likelihood of you winning as player 1. And my personal experiences in this might sting a little bit. Why I say a little bit? This might sting a little. The heart breaks much more often. So the advantage you get out of being player 1 seems to be capturing panic points. But the advantage in capturing panic points is only an advantage if you win, you know, by breaking the heart. Well, sort of, right? Because you do pressure the opponents into pushing in your territory when you have more panic points. And this might allow you to get more kills faster and win the game without breaking the heart. But hopefully you get what I'm saying. A game where you have more heart pressure, more a easier ability to get to the heart, amplifies the importance of capturing panic points earlier in the game. So what I'm saying is, if you win more often as player 1 than as player 2 in one map, might be because the heart breaks more often. But still not enough data to conclude, by the way. Alright, well, finally, this took 40 minutes to record. Hopefully it wasn't too long. I'm gonna try to edit it as simple as possible. I needed to explain this as much as I could, by the way, so if it's too long, whoopsie doopsie. But the results are here. Now, obviously, dude, if you're still watching and you want to participate in this, it would be great, because I think this is a long job to do alone. But if you get like 2, 3, 4 people to help me out, man, this is gonna go super quick. If we get like 1,000 results, we'll be able to actually get some data that's really interesting, I think. And it would be really interesting, like, maybe, I don't know if we should do it like right now. If I were to expand this research, it's kind of research, right? If I was to like keep going, the maps will change eventually, right? They'll rotate, and we might see the same maps happen, like recur again. But if we want to like actually conclude stuff in each of these maps, we need more data for each of these maps, right? So we can do it this way, or we can like sort of forget about each individual map and sort of deepen the research in actual small maps, big maps, and the total estimation, right? So that would just mean that if we have the same thing and like larger population, this number would go up, hopefully exceed. I mean, I say hopefully because I want to conclude something out of what I've been doing. I don't want it to be meaningless, right? So but sometimes it just sort of happens. That's how science works. But if we get more data, we're gonna get this is gonna be bigger, and this should exceed the critical value. Now, keep in mind, it's possible that if we get more data, these two results are gonna get closer. Also, keep in mind, if we collect data it's possible that these two numbers are going to go down or up, right? Depending on when we collect the data and which population it is. Anyway, look, I'm sort of rambling on. Reach out if you're trying to help, and I think this data can actually be used in tournaments. So if you're trying to apply some of this in your tournaments, you can reach out, and if you want to help, be fucking great. All right. See you later, I think.